Hey folks, Mike Johnson here. If it's got wheels and an engine, you're in the right place. On this channel, we dive into car repairs, maintenance tips, and everything you need to keep your ride running smooth. If you're into cars and want to keep learning, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. All right, enough talking. Let's get into it.
If you're having trouble understanding the meaning of fault code P0356, you've come to the right place. What does fault code P0356 mean? Fault code P0356 indicates an ignition coil F primary to secondary circuit fault. When the PCM detects a potential problem in one of the ignition coils, or loses control of the circuit, it records fault code P0356. For an in-depth explanation of how this code is defined, you can consult our technical discussion on ignition coil primary and secondary windings available here. Since the ECM to PCM triggers the primary winding of each ignition coil or coil pair, it can monitor the voltage spike created by the primary winding each time the secondary winding is activated. If the ECM to PCM fails to detect the primary voltage spike, it signals a possible problem with the primary, and possibly the secondary elements of the coil or coil group. If the PCM perceives a possible problem in one of the ignition coils, or loses control of the circuit, it records fault code P0356. If the secondary part of the ignition coil is short-circuited, the primary peak will be weak. This is when the P0356 code is usually displayed, if the fault concerns cylinder No. 6. What are the possible causes of P0356? Error code P0356 is linked to a specific problem with the F ignition coil, and there are several possible causes for this code. Here are some of the possible causes. Faulty ignition coil. The ignition coil itself may be faulty, with problems in its primary or secondary winding. Faulty wiring. Problems in the wiring between the F ignition coil and the PCM can cause code P0356. This could include broken wires, loose connections, or short circuits. Check engine light on. The check engine light on the instrument panel is one of the most obvious signs that code P0356 is present. Misfiring. You may experience misfiring or a loss of power during acceleration. The engine may feel hesitant or run erratically. Engine cuts. Intermittent engine cuts may occur, making driving unstable. Increased fuel consumption. A malfunctioning ignition coil can lead to inefficient fuel combustion, resulting in increased fuel consumption. Increased emissions. Ignition problems can lead to incomplete fuel combustion, increasing pollutant emissions. Difficult starting. A problem with the F ignition coil can make the engine harder to start. It is important to note that symptoms may vary depending on the severity of the problem and other factors related to vehicle operation. If you notice the engine light illuminating, or if you experience unusual symptoms while driving, it is recommended that you have the problem associated with code P0356 diagnosed and repaired quickly to avoid further potential engine damage. How to diagnose P0356? Prevent further complications by treating code P0356 immediately. However, it can be difficult to obtain an accurate diagnosis, as this code shares common triggers and symptoms with other DDC codes. As all vehicles are built differently, the diagnostic steps also vary depending on the manufacturer. For example, the diagnostic procedure for a P0356 on a Toyota may be different from testing the same code on a Ford. For the appropriate steps, always consult your vehicle's repair manual. If you decide that DIY auto repair isn't for you, you can always ask a mechanic for help. Here's a general guide to diagnosing the P0356 code. OBDII scanner. Use an OBDII scanner to read the error codes stored in the PCM. Confirm the presence of code P0356. Visual inspection. Visually inspect the wiring and connectors around ignition coil F. Look for broken wires, loose connections, or signs of damage. Test ignition coil. Test the F ignition coil by checking the resistance of the primary and secondary windings with a multimeter. Compare the values with the manufacturer's specifications. Wiring continuity test. Use a multimeter to check the wiring continuity between the F ignition coil and the PCM. Check for interruptions or short circuits. Connector check. Make sure the ignition coil F and PCM connectors are clean, well connected and in good condition. Diagnosis of related components. Since code P0356 may be caused by problems in the ignition circuit, also check related components, such as the crankshaft position sensor, CKP, and crankshaft position sensor, CMP. Real-time testing, use the OBDII scanner for real-time testing. Monitor data such as ignition signals, battery voltage, and other relevant parameters during engine operation. Check for short circuits, or look for short circuits in the electrical system, particularly in the F-ignition coil circuit. Test the PCM. If all other potential causes have been ruled out, consider testing the PCM itself. This may require specialized equipment and is best carried out by an automotive professional. It is recommended that you follow these steps in order, and note any relevant observations during the diagnostic process. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, it's best to consult an automotive professional for a thorough diagnosis and appropriate repairs. How to repair code P0356. Code P0356 can be registered on vehicles of different makes and models, so you should always refer to your vehicle's specific repair information for the appropriate repair steps. If you're not confident in your automotive know-how, it's best to leave this task to a mechanic. However, if you intend to solve this code yourself, make sure your automotive knowledge is up to date. Consult a repair manual or an online repair database to find out how to solve code P0356. Here are some general steps you can take to solve this code. Replacing the ignition coil. If the F-ignition coil test reveals any problems, replace the defective coil with a new quality one. Make sure the new coil is compatible with your vehicle. Repair or replace wiring. If faults are detected in the wiring between the F-ignition coil and the PCM, repair broken wires or replace damaged wiring. Checking and replacing spark plugs. If the spark plugs show signs of wear or are defective, replace them with plugs conforming to the manufacturer's specifications. Check related components. Check that the crankshaft position sensor, CKP, and crankshaft position sensor, CMP, are working properly. Replace if necessary. Repair short circuits. If short circuits are detected in the electrical system, repair them by isolating the affected sections of the wiring. Check for PCM software updates. Software updates can sometimes solve problems related to code P0356. Check with the vehicle manufacturer to see if updates are available for the PCM. Professional diagnosis. If the above steps don't solve the problem, or if you're unsure of your diagnostic skills, consult an automotive professional. Further diagnosis may be required, and specialized equipment may be used to test the PCM and other components. Don't forget to clear the error codes after completing the repairs. If the problem persists after following these steps, we recommend that you consult an automotive professional for further diagnosis. Associated codes. Fault code P0356 is specific to a problem in the F-ignition coil circuit, but there may be other associated codes, particularly if the problem affects other parts of the ignition system or engine. Here are some possible associated error codes, P0351 to P0358. These codes indicate specific problems with individual ignition coils, from A to H. P0356 is related to coil F, but if other coils are also affected, other codes may be generated. P0300 to P0308. These codes are linked to random or cylinder-specific misfires. If the problem affects combustion in other cylinders, these codes may be recorded. P0301 to P0308, these codes indicate cylinder-specific misfires. If the problem is extended to other cylinders, these codes may also be present. P0335, this code indicates a problem with the crankshaft position sensor, CKP, which is linked to the correct operation of the ignition system. P0340, this code indicates a problem with the crankshaft position sensor, CMP, which is also important for ignition system timing.